Hello YouTube, my name is Nero, and today we have some Call of Duty World at War Custom Zombies and another episode of Dear Nero, which of course is the weekly series here on my channel where subscribers send me in fan mail and or fan questions, and I do ask and answer them. To cover up the gameplay today, this is going to be the second half. It's going to be kind of a continuation of the gameplay from last week's Dear Nero, where I'm playing a bit of zombies here on the map Kino the Rebirth, which is a custom map for Call of Duty World at War on the PC. Some people call this Kino 2025. It's like a futuristic version of Kino der Toten, the zombies map from Black Ops 1. And yeah, so it's going to be continuing the gameplay from last week. Hopefully you guys will sit back, relax, and enjoy the gameplay while we go over this week's questions. And just to kind of put this out there right here at the very beginning, I still am quite sick. It's I feel a little bit better today, I suppose. Like every day it's gotten progressively worse. Like the first day it was just really kind of like a sore throat, raspiness. Second day it was sore throat, raspiness, and a lot of coughing. Third day it was sore throat, raspiness, lots of coughing, and then just a horrible head cold, so much like sneezing and just like runny noses and all that stuff like that, you know. And then today I feel a little bit better. The runny nose is kind of gone, but my voice is just so like it keeps randomly like going out on me. Like I'll be like in the middle of a word and then my voice will just like crack, but not crack in like a super high pitched way, but crack in like a the rest of the word doesn't even come out. Like it's so odd, guys. It's so odd. So forgive me if there's a lot of weird like jumps and cuts in this week's Dear Nero, just because that's the case. I still am very sick, and as a result, my voice is not quite cooperating with me, which I'm sure you can hear just by the tone of my voice. But regardless, ladies and gentlemen, let's hop in here to the questions. The first one, he is going to write, Dear Nero, I really enjoyed your community-based top 10 Treyarch maps of all time. My question is, would you consider doing weekly community-driven top 10s or maybe once a fortnight? Thanks, Jamick from England. Jamick, first things first, all right? The first question I have for you here. I'm going to reply to your question with another question. Do people use the term fortnight a lot in England? Like, if you guys can answer that for me in the comments. Like, over there in the UK, over in England, other parts of the world, I suppose, besides the United States, do people use the term fortnight often? Like, I know what fortnight means. It means 2 weeks. But nobody here in the United States uses the term fortnight. Nobody ever uses the term fortnight. So I just, maybe that's a cultural difference. I don't know. Feel free to let me know about that in the comment section below. I'm glad to hear, first and foremost, Jamick, that you liked the community-based top 10 Treyarch maps of all time. The video took a lot longer to put together than I thought it would because it took a lot longer to record Cinemax than I thought. You know, I initially thought, like, oh, yeah, this will be easy, you know. 10 maps, how long could it take to record Cinemax of 10 maps? And then suddenly I'm, like, on there on, like, Black Ops 2, and I'm like, how it worked is like you go into a private match and then you stand there in a private match for like a minute or so, and then you make sure recording is on so then you can go to theater mode and then record your Cinemax using that footage. And it was actually took a little bit longer than I thought it would. What I thought was going to be like a 20-minute thing took about an hour and a half, but I thought some of the cinematics are really cool. Obviously, you have to make sure you get the right cinematics and you don't mess things up, and overall, I think it's fun to just gauge the community and do those kind of polls. Like, I love getting feedback from fans. I love getting feedback from the community in general just to see what people think. You know, I talk so much. I've become somewhat of a pundit here on YouTube for Call of Duty, and while I have my own opinions, they're usually very strong opinions in one way or the other, it's always nice to see what people think from a different perspective. Like, my top 10 Treyarch maps are very different than, like, your guys' like, the overall community's top 10 Treyarch maps. Like, I guarantee, like, if we were to, you know, ask every single person here watching this video were to, like, fill out their own little poll, I feel as though everybody would have a different one. Of all the Treyarch maps of all time, I don't think any of us would have the exact same top 10. You know, even I don't think we'd have, like, the 10 same maps. Like, I think if they were to look at the maps and be like, okay, well, these are Nero's top 10 maps, I don't think anyone else would even have every single one of those maps on their list, regardless of order. Like, it just, everybody has different tastes, everybody has different opinions, so I like doing videos like that. Am I going to do a series of it? I don't think I'm going to do a series of it, necessarily. Obviously, I could. I mean, every single week I can just come up with a topic, have you guys vote on it, and then make a top 10 out of it. But I just don't think I'm going to do something along those lines, at least at this point in time. With Black Ops 3 right around the corner, I'm going to focus just about all my attention on Black Ops 3, trying to make as much high-quality, entertaining content for that game as I can, assuming this freaking goal goes away. Holy crap. I don't want, because with every Call of Duty game, can I just go on a little tangent here? With every Call of Duty game that comes out, every single time, I make a lot of videos, right, when the game first comes out, and as a result, I get an influx of new viewers to my YouTube channel who are looking for Black Ops 3 stuff or looking for the new Call of Duty stuff, and they end up finding my channel as a result of that. I don't want all these people that have never heard of NerosCinema and they're watching my videos for the first time to hear my voice in like the state that it's in now. I don't want them to hear me as like this stuffed up, nasally, sickly sounding person. Like, I hope this goes away by the time Black Ops 3 ends up coming out. That would just be fantastic. But I definitely think I'm going to do a lot more community-driven top 10 stuff in the future, but I just don't think I'm going to make it a weekly series or even like a bi-weekly series or anything like that. Next question, he is going to write, Dear Nero, would you like to see tanks make a return in World at War? I think it would be pretty cool on some of the bigger maps. It probably won't be in Black Ops 3, but maybe in a future Call of Duty. Keep up the great work. A big fan from the Netherlands. So do I think tanks are going to return in Call of Duty? No. Would I like to see tanks return in Call of Duty? No. I don't think tanks and vehicles in general are just part of what Call of Duty wants to be anymore. During some of the earlier Call of Duties, I can't say for Call of Duty 2. I'm fairly sure, but I can't quite remember because I didn't play. I played that game like barely. Like, I did a little bit of the Call of Duty 2 campaign for some achievements, and I played a small bit of the multiplayer, like a very small bit, and it was like well after the game was already out. Like, I went back to it and like tried it out like after the fact, so I didn't even play it in its prime or anything. So I don't know if that game had vehicles. I know Call of Duty 3 had vehicles. Obviously, World at War had tanks, but COD 3 had it might have had tanks in it as well. I don't know. I know there were jeeps and like mounted turrets in some of those jeeps and like motorcycles you could ride, because the maps were so giant, you get to one end of the map to the other. That was kind of a neat little thing, I suppose. But I don't think Call of Duty wants to be that. I don't think Call of Duty wants to be the game that has vehicles in it anymore. The game itself is about objective play. It's about gun skill, gunfights, and kill streaks. The big thing what makes Call of Duty is kill streaks. Now, none of those kill streaks, you notice, are a literal tank that you could drive around or anything like that. Because if you actually remember back to World at War, like, you may have like these memories in your head, like, yeah, that was so fun. There were tanks, and I remember this one time it was really intense, and I threw out the satchel charge, and then I waited for the tank to drive by, and as soon as the tank drove over my satchel charge, I detonated my charge, and that was a one-hit kill for the tank, because that's how it worked. If you could get a satchel charge underneath the tank, it was always a one-hit kill, whereas if you like stuck them to the side of the tank, it would take multiple of them to kill them. Like, not just 2, but like 5 or some crap. It was like insane. It took a long time to actually kill tanks. But if you actually think back to it, tanks were kind of annoying, because like if you this is coming from somebody that I have a lot of challenges in the tank. I use tanks quite a bit. But if somebody's like good in a tank in World at War, it's really hard to get them out of that tank. They can really lock down an objective. They can really lock down an area of the map, and they just become a giant nuisance. Whereas I think Call of Duty doesn't want to be about vehicle warfare. You know, Battlefield is about vehicle warfare. Call of Duty is about gun on gun and playing the objective and getting kill streaks, right? That's what Call of Duty is. So I don't think they're going to make a return in Call of Duty. Do I want them to return? I don't think I do, because while we can look back at World at War with all the rose-tinted goggles that we want, it was a fun game, but tanks really kind of made game modes like Domination, game modes like War kind of annoying, because it's like, okay, well, there's this guy in the tank, and then, you know, he's just making it difficult for us to get places. Now we have to like try and pull up his tank. It's like, I think Call of Duty is better as a gun-on-gun game. But I will say, I think I talked about it over the past couple of weeks as well here on Dear Nero. I would love the idea of a World War II Battlefield game. That would just be so cool. Like, Battlefield obviously has tanks. That's kind of a given. But thinking back to World at War and thinking of the tanks of World at War, it just gets me thinking even more about how much I want a brand new World War II Battlefield game. Like, picture like Battlefield 4, but just reskin everything to make it World War II. That would just be so cool. Like, oh my gosh, guys. I think it would be the coolest thing in the world if we had a World War II Battlefield game. Hopefully in the future, fingers crossed, because I have a feeling it could happen in the next 5 years or so, maybe. You never know. You never know. But yeah, I don't think tanks should ever make a return in Call of Duty. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, with Modern Warfare 3 and Ghost sales being some of the lowest in Call of Duty history, if the next Infinity War game does not do as well, do you think Activision will kick them out of the Call of Duty cycle? Michael from the Music City. So Michael, I don't think they're going to kick out Infinity War. A number of reasons for that. Number one, Modern Warfare 3 actually sold very well. It's hard to tell, like, it's hard to find accurate information of this. You can look up various websites out there, but most websites will agree that Modern Warfare 3 was actually the highest selling Call of Duty game at over 26 million copies. Black Ops 2 was close, I think, with like 24 million copies, but Call of Duty Ghost sold like 10 million less copies than what Modern Warfare 3 did. Like, it just sold so less. And if you remember back to Call of Duty Ghosts, which again, just like we talked about with World at War, there's like these rose-tinted goggles at times where people go back and they really remember all the good times about the game. They don't remember the bad times. Do you guys remember with Call of Duty Ghosts, like, come January, there was more people playing Black Ops 2 than there were Ghosts? Like, I was making videos of it. It's like, holy crap, like, the player count on this game is atrociously low. And as a result, if there's a very low player count, less people are going to be buying DLC. And if less people are buying DLC, less people are going to be buying microtransactions. They're not going to be buying map packs. They're going to be making less money for Infinity Ward and also going to be making less money for Activision as a result of that. So no doubt in my mind, Activision is going to have Infinity Ward on kind of a shorter leash this year or next year whenever they make their new game, right? I think they're going to have them on a much shorter leash, and they're going to be making sure that their game actually does sell well. And how they're going to try and make the game sell well is I think they're going to try and make their game as similar to Treyarch's games as humanly possible, because Treyarch games always sell well. You know, I think Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 both were over 20 million copies. I believe that's accurate. I could be wrong on that, but again, like I said, it's so difficult to find this information online. But yeah, World at War didn't sell very well because that was in 2008. It sold like roughly 11 million copies. But Black Ops 1, according to like statisticbrain.com and some other stuff, it sold roughly 22 million copies. Black Ops 2 sold roughly 25 million copies. So yeah, so the Black Ops games have really sold well. Black Ops 3 is probably going to sell amazingly well if I had to make a guess. And so as a result of that, you know, I think they're going to try and make their games more similar to Treyarch, because not only are they like in the market of trying to sell us copies of the games, but they're trying to keep us playing the game. That way we're more likely to spend money on microtransactions like custom camos, map packs, you know, gun packs, you know, things like that. So I think that the next Infinity War game actually could be pretty great, but I don't think they're going to kick them out of the cycle. I think Activision really likes, and I personally do as well, I really like the idea that we're going to have 3 developers, you know, for Call of Duty. So every single year we still get a new Call of Duty game, but at the same time, developers have had an extra year to put together the game as compared to before. So as a result, the game usually comes out a bit more polished. We haven't actually seen that yet. We saw it. Sledgehammer is the first Call of Duty game that they've released. You know, of course, they released Advanced Warfare as the first game for this new 3-year development cycle. And obviously, it had a ton of bugs at the start. But something to bear in mind is, of course, that was Sledgehammer's first solo run at a Call of Duty game. So you can give them a pass on that, I suppose. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be replacing them. I think they really like the 3-year development cycle. I think the majority of Call of Duty fans like that cycle. I just think that Infinity Ward's going to need to make a much different game than what they did with the original Ghost. Next question, he's going to write, Dear Nero, what do you think about microtransactions, and do you think Black Ops 3 will have a bunch of them like Ghost did? Arkenlock from Michigan. So Arkenlock is kind of ties into the last question, talking about microtransactions. What do I think about them? I like microtransactions. I really do. It's weird to me that, like, you see in a lot of different games out there, it's like big news if a game has microtransactions in it. It's like, why? It's like, well, it's a $60 game. They should have microtransactions. And it's like, well, obviously they shouldn't like be charging you like a bunch of extra stuff. Like, they shouldn't be charging you like the ability to like they should artificially slow down a game and then charge you money to try and like speed things up as if it were a mobile game and stuff like that. Obviously that kind of stuff is bad, but the vast majority of microtransactions, at least in all of the games that I play, which there's always this misconception that like all I do is play Call of Duty, but really Call of Duty is just a small game on like the like grand scale of games that I play on a consistent basis. And in most of the games that I play, microtransactions are usually a good thing. They're usually just cosmetic stuff that if you have the extra cash and you're really enjoying the game, you can purchase this extra thing, and there you go. I mean, that's all it is. It's extra cosmetic stuff for the most part, or it's just like extra content that isn't necessarily being gated by the game. It's just like, hey, if you don't want to take the time to actually unlock this, then feel free to just purchase it right away. That way you can kind of speed things along for you. But yeah, I don't think microtransactions are a bad thing. I think inherently microtransactions are a good thing. It gives people that have the extra cash, that are really invested in the game, that spend a lot of time playing the game, and can actually justify spending extra money on the game. It gives them them an option to get more content or more enjoyment out of the game that they would already play. You know, same thing happens for like DLC. Like, what's wrong with DLC? In my mind, there's nothing really inherently wrong with DLC aside from the fact that in terms of map-based DLC in Call of Duty, it kind of splits up the player base, which can sometimes make it harder to find a game. But at the same time, Call of Duty is such a massive game that it, you know, splitting up the community via map packs typically doesn't impact your matchmaking experience. You know, it just doesn't. There's so many people out there playing Call of Duty that regardless of what map packs and what DLC you have installed, you're gonna be able to find a match very, very quickly. Like, you know, just like that, you're gonna be right there. So inherently, I don't think there's anything wrong with microtransactions. Obviously, some games are examples of doing microtransactions poorly. There are some games that make it so microtransactions are all but a necessity, especially in the mobile market. Like, I think the entire mobile games market is kind of like built around the idea of microtransactions. And there's so many games out there that are free to play, and then they put in a bunch of microtransactions. Then sometimes you find games that, you know, they don't really have fair microtransactions. Like, the game itself is so ridiculously slow and boring that if you want to have any fun with it whatsoever, you need to buy like a speed up thing in the store or in the shop. And, you know, a mobile game that I recently tried out was like The Simpsons Tapped Out, and that game is kind of fun when you first start playing it, but then you realize like how slow that game really is, and like how you really need to just like purchase all these things from the store itself to really get any enjoyment out of that game. And so as a result, you know, sometimes microtransactions can be bad, but for the most part, in like the overwhelming majority of games, at least in my own personal experience, microtransactions are usually a good thing. So I definitely dig that. Do I think that Black Ops 3 is going to have the same amount as Call of Duty Ghost or even Advanced Warfare? Probably. I mean, every year they put out DLC camos. Every year they put out map packs. Occasionally they do weapon DLC, but initially weapon DLC is going to be kind of exclusive to the map packs. Then later on in the life cycle, they'll make it available for individual purchase. That's just like, you know, normally what they end up doing. So, yeah, I totally think that there's going to be DLC and lots of it in Black Ops 3. Is that a bad thing? No, I don't think so. I personally think that microtransactions are an okay thing in Call of Duty and in video games in general. And I like microtransactions a lot of the time. Next question, he is going to write, and speaking of microtransactions, Dear Nero, I am wondering whether to get the Season Pass for Call of Duty Black Ops 3 when it first comes out, or should I wait until Christmas? I figure that since no map packs are coming out before Christmas, I should get it then, but I would have to wait to play the giant bonus zombies map. None of my friends are getting the map anytime soon, so I'm curious as to what you would do if you could either save your money for an upcoming game or get the Season Pass, which I get every year. And this person did not leave his or her name. So it's really a case-by-case basis when it comes to whether or not you're going to purchase a Season Pass. Now, I typically do not recommend purchasing a Season Pass unless you are already like unless you're playing like a well-established franchise. Like Call of Duty, you're typically good to get the Season Pass because you know what you're going to get. You have years of experience. There's years of back catalogs of DLC that is released for Call of Duty. You generally get an idea of what you're going to get. You know, you purchase the $50 Season Pass for Call of Duty, you're going to be getting all the map packs, you're going to be getting all the DLC as soon as it comes out, and chances are, if you're watching this channel anyway, you're a big fan of Call of Duty and you're probably going to be playing that DLC regardless. But then when the new game comes out, like Star Wars Battlefront, that announces it has a $50 DLC, and you have no idea what that game is going to be like you look at the Season Pass for Star Wars Battlefront, and then you look at the beta, which we had 2 total maps that we could play on in the multiplayer, and then 1 map that we could play like a single player wave-based survival thing on. You know, we don't know anything about that game. We saw 4 total weapons in the multiplayer. You know, we didn't see a whole lot from that beta, so we have no idea what to expect when it comes to Star Wars Battlefront. And so as a result, I would totally not recommend buying the Season Pass for that game because we know nothing about what that game is going to be like. You know, but Call of Duty, on the other hand, we typically have a good idea what the game is going to be like. Generally, we have an idea what we're getting when it comes to Season Passes. So for most people, I recommend it. If you're a big fan of Call of Duty and you plan on playing the game throughout the entirety of the year's life cycle, then yeah, you should probably end up getting it. Should you wait? You personally, you could do that. I mean, with a lot of great games coming out, you know, Fallout 4 is going to be coming. And, of course, Star Wars Battlefront and all the other games that are going to be coming out in this coming couple months here, yeah, maybe you should save your money. You know, if you're essentially, the way you described it, since there's going to be no actual DLC coming out before Christmas, what you're essentially doing is you're going to be putting that money up front just so you can play the giant bonus zombies map, as well as so you can play the Nuketown map, depending on what platform you're on. I'm not sure what platform you're playing on specifically, But you're essentially going to be paying that $50 up front just so you can play the giant zombies map. Now, are you a big zombies player? Is that going to be worth it to you? Or do you maybe just want to wait until Christmas and then purchase like another game with that money, then come Christmas end up getting like the season pass for Christmas or something like that? I think that would probably be a better option, all things considered, because you said like even your friends don't plan on getting the season pass. So even if you do get the zombies map, you're not going to have anyone to play it with. Where's the fun in that, I suppose? So yeah, maybe you should wait till Christmas. That seems like in your individual situation, that seems to be kind of a pretty good way to go. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, who do you think will go to the Super Bowl this year? I'm a Patriots fan, so I want to see the Patriots go, but I want them to play a team like Green Bay, Arizona, or Atlanta. Who do you think would bring in the best views? Personally, I think the Packers-Patriots could be the most watched game in Super Bowl history. From Will from New Hampshire. So, Will, what teams do I think would make the most money? Like you said, a Packers-Patriots Super Bowl would probably do pretty well. I can't say like which teams like. I think maybe a Patriots-Cowboys Super Bowl. Like, I don't think the Cowboys are going to make the Super Bowl. Let's be clear about that. But, the Cowboys, I believe, are, like, the most... I think that they earn the most every single year. Like, I think of all the NFL franchises, the Dallas Cowboys are worth the most. So maybe, like, a Cowboys-Patriots Super Bowl would make the most money. I don't know. What teams do I think are going to make it to the Super Bowl? I think, this is just my prediction, we'll see if I'm correct, but I think that it's going to be a Patriots-Panthers Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a rematch of Super Bowl 38. And what's kind of interesting about that, kind of like a little fun fact, was that Super Bowl 38, which was Tom Brady and the Patriots and versus Jake Delhomme and the Panthers. They end up having a very close game, and the Patriots end up winning with a last-second Adam Vinatieri field goal. I think it was in 2003 when that happened. That was actually the first like Super Bowl I actually watched. I was let's see, that was in 2003, so I would have been 12 or 13, like somewhere in that range. Like I was very young. That was the first time I stayed up the entire time. I watched the entire Super Bowl. We had made an entire like event out of it with like the family and like a whole get together and party and whatnot. And yeah, so that was actually like the first like big Super Bowl party thing I went to, and it was Patriots Panthers back in Super Bowl 38, and just with how well the Panthers are playing right now and how well the Patriots are playing right now, I think right now they're probably going to be like the front runners to actually make it to the Super Bowl and play each other. So we'll have to see, but that's just my prediction. I think it's gonna be Patriots Panthers, and it's gonna be a rematch of Super Bowl 38. Next and final question, he is going to write, Dear Nero, recently news has been going around that during the free trial of YouTube Red, content creators will not be getting revenue / getting paid. It kind of pisses me off that some YouTubers that have 1 to 2 million plus subscribers are complaining. I understand this is their job, but would this affect content creators such as you who are under 1 million and don't receive as much revenue as them and use this as a full-time job? I'm not trying to bash anyone, but they really don't have any right to complain. People who are under that mark, I understand complaint, but anyone above that mark has no right. I hope you understand what I'm trying to get across. Dragon from Pennsylvania. So Dragon, I'm not sure English is your first language, but I think I understand what you're trying to go with that particular question. So it was announced, or it was talked about. It was thrown around, the idea of it, and then Full Screen made a big fuss about it. But then YouTube came back and was like, "Oh no, that wouldn't be the case. That would just be silly." But it was going around that during the free trial of YouTube Red, which actually started today for people in the United States, you have the ability to sign up for it. That content creators would not be getting paid whatsoever for any of it. Essentially what YouTube Red is. If you guys missed that, and I'm gonna put a link to it down there in the video description if you guys would like to know how it works. With YouTube Red, they're going to be giving a free trial, and during that free trial, everyone's going to be able to try it out if you're in the United States and you sign up for it, where you're going to have no ads whatsoever shown on YouTube. Then you get a bunch of other little benefits and whatnot, which is kind of a nice thing. But how they kind of planned on working it is with YouTube Red, it's going to be a subscription service. It's going to be $9.99 a month, and they're going to be taking that money and kind of dispersing it evenly like amongst all the different content creators and whatnot to make it so we make just as much, if not more, than what we usually would make here on YouTube. Right, that's kind of how it works. But with the idea of a free trial, how's that supposed to work? If they're not showing ads and they're not paying to not have ads, then wouldn't we just all be seeing like a giant cut for the month of November, which is like the second best month on YouTube in terms of the ad market? That seems like it would be pretty terrible. And then YouTube ended up coming out today, and if you guys want to check this out, I'll put a link to this down there in the video description as well, where YouTube made a new post on their creators blog, and they said, and I quote, Creators are the lifeblood of YouTube, so with Google Play Music subscribers instantly joining YouTube Red, we will pay a portion of the revenue we receive from the subscribers to our creators on day one. Even with 30-day free trials, our creator community will make just as much or more as they would have without YouTube Red. And there's a bunch of other things in there you can read as well. But essentially, it looks like us YouTubers are not going to be like basically, freaking jobless for a month, which is really silly. Like the entire idea of that was horrible. I can understand why a lot of people were complaining about it. Now, you said you at least alluded to in your question, Dragon from Pennsylvania, that people that are above a certain benchmark, right? People that are like they have a certain amount of success on YouTube don't get the right to complain just because other people might have it worse. And that is just a fallacy in and of itself. And it's a terrible way to look at things if I'm being completely honest. I feel as though people that have that mindset, people that have the mindset that, oh, you shouldn't be able to complain about this because of reason, those people are woefully misinformed about how the world really works. I feel as though people that say that, YouTubers make too much money, or YouTubers don't make enough money, or YouTubers that shouldn't be able to complain about this because their job is so easy, those people don't do YouTube. The people that say that have no idea what goes into the daily life, the daily routine of a YouTuber. Basically, when people say, oh, you shouldn't have the right to complain, or oh, you're woefully overpaid, or anything like that, you're not respecting us on a professional level. I'm not talking about just myself. I'm talking about all YouTubers, all content creators in general. You're not respecting us on a professional level. While we're sitting here putting in 8, 10, 12, sometimes 15-hour days making content just because we're enjoying ourselves, to some people that means that that doesn't qualify as a real job. Just because even though we're putting the same amount of time, we're making content that's going to be viewed by thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes millions of people, just because we're enjoying ourselves and it's not like back-breaking labor, or if it's not work that like we're designed to not enjoy, it's not a real job. Just because I don't wake up every day dreading having to go to work, I don't wake up every day at 6 o'clock in the morning and then make my commute off to the office and then spend 9 hours a day, not counting my lunch break, just sitting there miserable. Just because that doesn't happen, I don't have a real job, or we don't have a real job. I think that is a very asinine and backwards way of thinking when it comes to YouTube content creators. Of course, people that are way up there on the scale, the royalty of YouTube, people that have 1 to 2 million subscribers, people that have even more than that, they have every single right to complain because they are doing their job every single day. They get up, they start working on their stuff, which is enjoyed by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. It really depends on the situation and which channel you're talking about and which creator you're talking about. And to say that they don't get the right to complain just because they've already had a bunch of success, like, how does that make any sense? Like, what other form of media, like, what other job out there do you see people say, oh, well, they deserve a 70% pay cut for 1 month, they shouldn't complain, they're fine? It's like, what? Like, how does that make any sense? How does anybody even have that line of thinking? You were kind of right in part of your question here when you mentioned, like, when this affect content creators like myself who don't have a giant following on YouTube. I have a pretty good one, pretty decent sized following here on YouTube, and I make a good amount of money from YouTube. It has been my job for 4 years now, but wouldn't it have affected me a bit more than somebody that has several million subscribers? The answer is yeah, sure, it would have, because I'm not killing it on YouTube. I make enough to get by, I have a little bit of money in the bank, sure, but what if I lived through November? If they would have made it so we weren't getting paid essentially for the entire month of November, then yeah, I would have made it through there. I would have lived, things would have been okay. Obviously it would have stunk, but I would have lived, sure. But to say that people, just because they're above a certain threshold, they shouldn't be able to complain about like an 80s, 70s, depending on how many people how much of their viewership's from the United States. To say that we shouldn't be able to complain about that is just, again, it's really asinine. It's really backwards. Like, what other profession out there has to deal with this? Oh, that doctor over there, he's way overpaid. Like, he's just a family doctor. All he does is like take your temperature and stuff. Like, he's way overpaid. He shouldn't have the right to complain about making 70% less money this month just because of reasons. Like, think about that. In any job out there, just because we work with video games, people have this idea that gaming YouTubers, or even just YouTubers in general, that maybe don't work necessarily with gaming. People have this idea that we don't have real jobs. We have the easiest thing in the world. It's so easy to run a YouTube channel. Anybody can do it. But that's not the case. If it were the case, there'd be a lot more successful channels on YouTube than there are. There's a lot of channels out there that try to be successful on YouTube but just can't. They try all the time. They make tons of videos. They make tons of content. They put a bunch of money in, but they just can't do it. It sounds like I'm being like very, very arrogant when I say it, but it takes like it takes a special kind of person, it takes a special kind of channel, and it takes a bit of luck as well to be successful on YouTube. And to say just because somebody has reached a giant threshold like 1 to 2 million subscribers. That it's asinine to say that they shouldn't be upset about potentially a 78% cut in their payment for really no reason. That is just a totally backwards way to think about it. But all of this is irrelevant. All of it, of course, is irrelevant because, again, if you guys would like to read the creator blog that YouTube posted, apparently content creators like myself will be getting paid for the month of November. But, yeah, there was definitely quite a little controversy there, I suppose, for a little bit up until they made that announcement, because people thought, we essentially just weren't going to be getting paid for the entire month of November. And it's such a weird business, man. I can't see another profession out there where people would be arguing that, yeah, it's perfectly okay. You don't have the right to complain that you're just not going to get paid for an entire month's worth of work. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But I think those people are definitely just woefully misinformed. But regardless, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude this week's episode of Dear Nero. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. And if you did, remember to leave a rating where you guys feel it deserves. And yeah, this was, I think it was a pretty good episode. Overall, I thought it was nice. There's minimal stoppages. There's minimal issues with my cold and things going on with that. So yeah, I think it was a pretty good episode overall. Hopefully this cold will be gone tomorrow. That'd be fantastic if it were just magically gone tomorrow, or at least magically gone by at least Friday. I would hope it'll be gone, because like I said, it got worse and worse there for the first 3 days, but today, which is the 4th day of me being sick, it's gotten a lot better. Like, I'm not nearly as stuffed up. My throat feels a lot better. It doesn't hurt nearly as much to talk and stuff like that. So I think I'm kind of on the upswing with it, and hopefully by at least Friday or something, I'll be good to go, and we'll be back to my old normal self, and I won't sound all weird in my videos. But regardless, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys will enjoy this week's episode of Dear Nero. If you guys would like to submit your questions for next week's episode of Dear Nero, simply send me a personal message here on YouTube. Please start your message with Dear Nero. That way, when I'm scrolling through all my personal messages in my inbox, I can easily identify the ones that were specifically sent for Dear Nero. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to leave a rating, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.